Hello everyone, welcome back to the Real Starfighter, and today we'll be putting the Scum Hawk pilots into a tier list, including the contents from fugitives and collaborators. Now this is my normal tier criteria, but because the Hawk is a designated support ship for the game of X-Wing, I looked at it through the lens of as a support ship. I didn't look through it as a centerpiece or aggro type ship. I looked at it purely as support because that is its role in the X-Wing Miniatures game. Starting with Tier 3, we have the Spice Runner. If you're going to play a Hawk 290, at least in my opinion, you're playing it for some type of ability to make your list stronger, to make yourself a little bit better, a little bit more consistent. And when you're playing a generic Hawk, you're not getting any of that consistency out of it. If you're looking for a cheap turreted ship, I think that the Y-Wing is better because simply by putting a Y-Wing on the board with a dorsal turret, it is already better than the Spice Runner because you're getting a forward arc and wherever you are pointing your dorsal turret at. Going on to Tier 2, we have some really interesting pilots starting off with Dace Bonearm. Now, Dace Bonearm's ability is when a ship receives an ion token, you can spend 3 charges for that enemy ship to gain 2 additional ion tokens. Now, this is great if you're going up against a lot of large base ships. However, if your opponent does not have any large base ships or even medium base ships, then his ability has no purpose in the game. I think that if we end up in a large ship meta and everyone's flying a large ship of some type, I think Dace Bonearm becomes viable. But until we reach that point, or if you ever do reach that point, he's really kind of just an initiative for Hawk. Next up, we have Tapusk, and he's here because he's kind of in the same boat as Dace. He actually prevents force charges and reoccurring charges from regenerating, which I think is super powerful because when I went up against my first Tapusk, I was flying a Palp Aces list, and they were stopping my Palp token from recovering. I thought that was really powerful and really cool, and I thought Tapusk was going to be a game-changing type pilot, but when I flew against Tapusk again, I was in a X-wing and A-wing list, and Tapusk did absolutely nothing. The player was at the end of the game. The player said, "Yeah, I don't think Tapusk is that good. I just never get to use his ability because no one flies anything lately of recurring charges or force charges." And so he becomes situational, but I do think if something like Palp Aces, or if we see a lot of Luke Skywalker in top hyperspace lists, I think Tapusk is going to be very strong, very powerful. But again, he's very situational, very much like Dace Bonearm. And at the top of Tier 2, we have Galmont Key, and his ability reads, at the start of the end phase, you may spend 2 charges to choose yourself or a ship in your mobile firing arc with 1 or more circular tokens. During the end phase, circular tokens are not removed from that ship. Now, I think that ability is very powerful, but what makes it Tier 2 to me is I think it's very situational. You're only using it if the opportunity presents itself to keep those tokens. Now, if you take tokens, you're obviously going to want to spend them, but in the moments where you don't and you want to hold on to them and really push your attack, that's what Galmont Key is there for. I don't think that you're really building a strategy around him. I don't think you're going to let damage come through if you can prevent it with a token just to hold on to it for another round. I think that Galmont Key has really great situations where he goes off and he pluses very well, but you're not centering your gameplay around that ability. It's just there to help you out if the opportunity presents itself. At the start of Tier 1, we have Kanan Jarrus. Now, I say a lot in my videos that any pilot that adds to the value of their ship, as in if they normally roll 3 attack dice and somehow they make themselves roll 4 at any given range with any of their abilities, they're an immediate Tier 1 pilot. They're game-changing because they're changing the values of their ship. Kanan Jarrus is the same thing, but in an opposite way. He decreases the value of the enemy ships, which I think is a little bit more powerful in my opinion. I think Kanan is really good with that ability. I am a little sad it only has 1 force charge to use, and it has to be in your mobile arc, but I still think it's very powerful. He can use it on enemy ships that are attacking him or his other ships. I just think he's going to be very locked into that focus rotate or that target lock rotate action because he always needs to make sure he has his guns on his opponent, which isn't a bad thing. But also having 1 force charge makes it a little bit harder to choose, makes it not really harder, but more crucial to choose when you are using his ability. Right in the middle of tier 1, we got Torkoal Mux. Now, Torkoal Mux is your engagement phase combo maker, because his ability reads, at the start of the engagement phase, you may choose one ship in your firing arc. If you do, that ship engages at initiative 0 instead of its normal initiative value this round. Now, I've seen people use it on their own ships. I've actually seen a list with Torkoal Mux and Fen Rao, and they made their Fen Rao initiative 0. And I thought that was just a weird thing. Like, why would you make initiative 0 Fen Rao? And then I realized that because Fen Rao had advanced proton torpedoes and wanted to get into that position, they were going up against one of my decimators. And they basically used the other ships to knock down the shields. And then they used Fen Rao at initiative 0 to shoot 6 advanced proton torpedo dice into my ship. And it really did a huge damage onto the ship. And I realized, if they would have done that at the beginning, if they would have done that at initiative 6, it wouldn't have hurt that bad. The combo there had pushed, I think, about maybe 10 damage in on a decimator. And I thought that was really amazing. I thought that was really cool. So I think Torkoal Mux is a great combo maker because you can use it on your opponent or on yourself. So Torkoal Mux is definitely a really good option if you want to make crazy combos happen in the engagement phase. And at the top of tier 1, we have Paylob. Now, Paylob has always been a menace to me because he steals your focus and evade tokens. And so I thought the way around this was, let me take target lock tokens. But when you take target lock tokens, you're selling on our offense and your defense is severely crippled because because if you roll eyeball results, you have no way to convert them. And if you roll nothing, you have no evade token to convert your green dice. So the name of the game is basically target lock Paylob, but Paylob is probably going to have a huge amount of defense around him. The other parts of the list will probably remove your ships and take advantage that you don't have any green tokens. So Paylob changes the game state a lot. He changes the game state a lot for your opponent by forcing them not to take focus or evades, because then they just become wasted action. So they choose to do things like reposition a little bit more, and maybe they put themselves in a bad position because they want to take that action so bad that they just take it and they actually put themselves in a worse position. Or they're taking target locks, which is great for their offense, but it's hindering on their defense, and you take advantage of that with stuff like Fen Rao or with a Caval that's running around the board edge. There's just a lot of things that open up when you have Paylob in your list, and he just changes the way of how you need to approach the X-Wing game. And then for tier 0, we have no pilots. Now, I think Paylob is actually the closest because, again, I said that he changes the way you have to play X-Wing, but it's more of a change of play style. Again, not being able to take a focus or evade is a negative thing, but it's not a game-changing thing because you have outs to it. You have target locks, which increase your offense, and so with that offense, if you go all in on Paylob no longer becomes an issue, and you just normally play X-Wing again. But there's no ship in the Hawk arsenal, there's no pilot in the Hawk arsenal that I think could win a game all on its own. Again, I think Paylob is the closest, and I do think that the Hawk is a great support ship. It is a dedicated support ship, and it should be treated as that. So here's a quick recap of the pilots in their tiers. Now, again, the Spice Runner is just, I don't know why it exists. I think if you're playing a Hawk, you're playing a pilot for its ability, and that's the reason why you play a Hawk. I think all the Hawk pilots have their own special little trick, but I think some are more consistent than others, like Kanan, Torkoal, and Paylob. I think that Dace and Tapusk are situational, but they can be very helpful depending on your local meta. What I also like about the Hawk is that it offers control in a game that doesn't really see too much of it. For example, I play a lot of TCGs like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Digimon, and there's always control-type cards that prevent your opponent from doing certain things or changing the way the game is played. That is something that I didn't think I would see in X-Wing until I started flying against Hawks. Was they actually changed the way the game operates just a little bit to make it a little more annoying and serve some things in the person who's playing the Hawk in their favor. I think it's a powerful ship, but it is a support ship. I don't like its stat line. I don't think it's an offensive ship. I think if it's a ship in the end game, you're not going to perform very well with it. The 5 hit points is very fragile, even with the 2 green dice. And then the 2 turreted dice that are going around the ship is not very powerful. I think that the Moldy Crow makes it a much better ship in terms of offense, but because its lack of maneuverability, I still think it'll suffer from getting arc dodged and being put in positions where it cannot get out of. Thank you everyone for watching. If this video helped you out, make sure that you share it with a friend. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. This place crawls, and remember to always check your 6.